What is a digital strategy? How can you use one to grow your business? But first and foremost, how can you develop a digital strategy? These are some of the questions that we will answer in this episode of the #1 digital marketing podcast in Kenya. My name is Ian Kuria Maina, and thank you for joining me today. So the pandemic accelerated the digital transformation, and businesses all over the world, including here in Kenya, had to not pivot, but had to evolve in how they ran their businesses. And digital was at the forefront. So when the pandemic started, many businesses actually didn't release funds, or rather didn't have a marketing budget, because they were just everyone was trying to keep cash because we didn't know what was going to happen next. But after some time, people realized that COVID is here to stay and we still need to market ourselves. And what better way to market our businesses than digital, because everything had moved to digital platforms, be it meetings. More social media users were seen from the start of the pandemic. So today we're going to be discussing what a digital strategy is, how you can develop one, and how you can use it to grow your business. We'll start with an interesting fact or myth, or debunking a myth. So a digital strategy is not a separate document from your business plan. What a digital strategy does is just complement your business plan. So for example, let's say one of your goals in your business is to have a monthly recurring revenue of 1 million shillings. So what a digital strategy will do is come up with a plan of how digital assets will help you achieve this goal. So a digital strategy is not a new plan, it's just a plan to complement your overarching business objectives and business goals. So if you don't have a business plan, then you can't have a digital strategy. You first need to have a business plan so that you can have a digital strategy. And here in Kenya, we confuse having social media presence as having a digital strategy, or having a website as having a digital strategy, or developing an app. This is just part of having a digital strategy. Having a digital strategy is something huge. So having social media presence is good, but that's not having a strategy, because what we want to do is develop something that's very sustainable, something that we can refer to 2, 3, 4 years down the line. So we have defined what strategy is. And now we need to identify, or rather we need to discuss how we can be able to develop a digital strategy, because that's a main thing. Because if we don't know how to develop a digital strategy, then what's the point of it all? So we're going to be using a very interesting model. It's called the PROPEL Model. And we will define each stage. And let me just first define this model. So P is for plan, R is for research, O is for objectives, the other P is for prepare, E is for execute, and L is for learn. So that's the PROPEL model. So we'll use this model to develop and measure and analyze our digital strategy. So if you have a pen, if you have somewhere to write, your phone, your notepad, feel free to do so. So we'll start with the first P, which is plan. So Benjamin Franklin said, by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. And this is the essence of the first stage of this model. So what's the purpose of this phase? So we'll clearly define our success outcomes in this step. We'll run digital audits. We'll identify the resources that we have, the resources that are available, and we'll set budgets. So we all have a purpose. We all have a reason of why we do what we do. So we just don't create or develop a digital strategy out of the blue because it's the anything to do. So we have to have a purpose of why we want this strategy. So that's the first thing that we need to identify. What is the purpose of a digital strategy? Because remember, not every business requires a digital strategy. Most business do, but not all. And next, as we said, is we need to identify success outcomes. Of course, for many of us, the main success outcome is monetary. We want to make money. We want to pay our bills. So that's the main success outcome. But it's not the only success outcome, and there are many other outcomes that can lead to making money. So, for example, it can be creating awareness. It can be just creating a buzz and engagement around a specific product or service that you are offering. So it's also very important to be able to know that money, yes, is the end goal, but there are other steps that we need to achieve before we get to the money. The next thing is we need to identify what existing channels we have. I'm sure many of us have seen some companies that have 2-3 Facebook accounts. So one team comes in, creates a new Facebook account. Let's say the company didn't want the team anymore, so they get another team. The other team doesn't do an audit, so what do? They create another social media page. They create another Facebook page. So you end up having duplicate pages. So when people are searching for products or they come across your page, and let's say they come across the old page and see that the last time you posted was 2 years ago, that doesn't leave them with a positive feeling about your company. And then they later see that you have a second page, so it doesn't show some seriousness on the company's end. So we need to identify whether we have existing channels, because sometimes we might have created a page a long time ago and we don't remember. The next thing we need to identify is the resources. And here we're talking about time, money, and people. And this is very important because we need to have money when we are getting into a digital strategy. Gone are the days where you just post content and it's consumed. We need to promote our content, and especially in some industries where the competition is very high, you need to have a budget set aside. And when we talk about a budget being set aside, the word budget for many people, they feel like it has to be in the hundreds of thousands of shillings, which isn't the case. If you have 2,000, that is your budget. So use that 2,000. If you have 10,000, use that as your budget. And if you have 1,000,000, that's your budget. The other thing is time. You need to identify whether you have the time and people. So time and people here are very important because we need to know whether it's a one-man show or we have a team that's managing this strategy or implementing this strategy. And it's good when it's a team, because remember, under digital strategy we have so many moving parts. So for one person to be the one implementing and managing all this, that's spreading yourself too thin. So if the budget is right, if the money is right, then it's good to have a team implementing your strategy. So yeah, as I said, there's so much to do, and having one person is usually not the best thing to do. We talked about outcomes, and I want to take us through a few outcomes. So one, of course, is making a sale. So that's usually everyone's dream. We all want to make sales. We all want to get that money. But the other outcomes that we can look at, one being awareness. This is also a very important outcome. Actually, it is the first outcome that you need to target. So you need to create awareness about your products and services. It's very hard for somebody to just buy your product or subscribe to your service on the first day. However, that is possible because they might have gotten aware at 8 a.m. and by 3 p.m. they're making a purchase, but still awareness had to be part of the success outcome. When you have a website, things like site visits That's an outcome. Having a lead, somebody, let's say, filling in a form on your website or filling in a form on LinkedIn or Facebook, that is an outcome. Engagement, people liking, people commenting, it's still an outcome. Yes, they haven't bought your product or subscribed to your service, but at least there's some engagement. That's an outcome. So yeah, it's good to know that money is not everything. We talked about performing audits. So one is an audit of your existing channels. We also need, if you have a website, we also need to perform a site audit and identify how your website is performing, how it's been performing, and so to see the positives and to see the negatives. We also need to, as part of your social audit where you're identifying your channels, you need to also get login details and put them aside. It seems like something very easy or simple to do, but it's very important to have login details put somewhere aside, because there are many instances where the administrator or the person who created the page left the company and has the credentials. So getting to that person becomes a tedious process. The next phase under this model is R, which is research. So the purpose of this phase is to gather as much data as possible before developing this strategy. So we need to have as many data points as possible on our business, on the industry that we are in, and also on the competitors as well as the audience. So this is research on everything: yourself, audience, your competitors, and the industry. So it's important to have this data. And yeah, we look at a few research activities that you can perform to get as much data as possible. So we look at channel analytics. So this is where you use data and insights on your existing channels to make decisions. So for example, you already had a Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter accounts, so you can go back to these accounts and check their analytics dashboard to see, let's say, what posts performed well in the last 1 year, what didn't perform well, what ads had a really good impact, and the likes. It's also important to perform audience research. Personally, I think this is the most important part when it comes to research, because everything that you do, and I mean everything is based on your audience. So this is very, very important. You need to identify who you're targeting. And if you're a business and if you're struggling with, let's say, your audience research, I usually advise the best place to begin if you're lost is look at your competitors, because your competitors, or rather people who have been in the industry for, let's say, a bit longer than you, have customers. So do an audit on them. Go to their social media pages, go to their website. You can get analytic tools where you can put in your competitors' website, and then they can be able to give you information about their website in terms of what people search so that they can get to their website. We have SEMrush, we have Ahrefs, which is Ahrefs. So these are some of the tools that you can use to get a lot of information on your competitors, but at the same time get information on your audience. The other thing that we need to look at is keyword research. So you need to understand how customers are using keywords in search engines, as well as social media platforms, to get information about the products and services that you're selling. So those are some of the areas under research that you can look at. And I think we can go to the next we can go to the next part, which is O, and O is objectives. And the purpose of this phase is to now set your goals. You've already set your budget. You've identified the resources that you have. You have identified who your audience is, what platforms that you'd want to be on based on your audience research. So you've done quite a bit. So now you need to identify the goals and objectives that you'd want to achieve. And remember, I said that your digital strategy is not separate from your business plan. So you'll find that your objectives here are more or less what is in your business plan. So what might be different is, for example, you're using social media. So you would want to target a certain number of people on social media. So those are some of the objectives that you would set aside. And it's very important to set your objectives, because once you set this objective, this is what you will use to measure success. So what are some of the let's say KPIs that you can use, or KSOs, which is key success outcomes? So one, again, sales, as sales is usually the first one and the most important one. We have site visits, we have leads, engagement, video views, mentions, reach, search volume. So there's a lot of outcomes that you can have, and this is, again, is very specific to you, specific to every business. We'll go to the next phase, which is prepare. So preparing, in this phase, what we are doing is we are gathering all the assets, all the materials, and all the resources that we have put together, and now we want to put them into motion. So we will combine all the strategies to form one overarching strategy. So we've already set our objectives, we already set our success outcomes, we have all the assets and material that we need. So here is actually where we now develop the strategy, and we're just one step away from implementation. So here is where we'll have channel strategy, content strategy, and things like search strategy. So under search strategy, we'll have things like search engine optimization, search engine marketing, content strategy. This is where we identify what content formats best suit our audience. And again, here we'll have this data because of the audience research that we conducted. We're going to have the creative strategy. So what kind of graphics are we going to use? Do we use 3D animation? So there's a lot. This is where you now where you put now the meat to the bone, and all this is just before implementation. So we said the model is PROPEL. So we've looked at plan, we've looked at research, we've looked at objectives, we looked at prepare. So we go to E, which is now executing or execute. So here's where we set the ball rolling or in motion. So, and before we do this, let's say you're in a team. So this is where everybody needs to know their role. And now we put these strategies in place. So, and there needs to be a specific person. Again, let's say it's a team, there needs to be a specific person handling each sector. So for example, there's a social media, we need to have a social media lead. And Facebook, we can have a Facebook lead. And at Twitter, we have a Twitter lead. And then we go to search and website, we have a separate team there. And again, if you don't have the budget for this, you can start as a one-man show, but remember, it's going to take a toll on you. So as soon as you can, ensure that you have somebody there to help you. But again, you can still do this as a one-man show. You just need to start slowly and with time grow. And by start slowly, I mean, this is what I mean. You can, let's just start with 2 channels, be it, let's say, Facebook and their website, or Facebook and Instagram, or at most 3 channels, Facebook, Instagram, and your website. So Again, so execute phase is, as the name suggests, we are executing the strategies that we set in the prepare phase. So once we have executed our strategy, we need to learn, we need to measure, we need to analyze what we have implemented. And it's usually the last step, but it's again one of the most important steps, because if you put out content and you don't measure it, you can't learn anything. You won't be able to learn how your audience is receiving this content. So it's good that once you publish your posts, once you publish your content, that after some time you come back and analyze the content that you have published. So to identify what content formats are doing well, what channel is doing well. You might have thought that, let's say, Twitter is the one that your business needs. But based on now real tangible results and how your audience is taking information, you realize that it's actually another platform. Let's say, for example, LinkedIn. So we need to measure the content that we are posting in a nutshell. So basically, that's the PROPEL model. That's how you come up with digital strategy and implement your digital strategy. And this PROPEL model it's not a linear model. It's iterative process, and by this I mean it's more or less like a circle. So meaning that it's always continuous. We are always learning. We are always improving. So yeah, that's basically how you would come up with a digital strategy. I hope you've been able to understand a few things that you can be able to implement from today. And if you just need to take one thing, remember that your digital strategy is not a separate document from your business plan. And you need to have a business plan before you have a digital strategy, because your digital strategy complements your business plan. And also remember the PROPEL model. So there's going to be an article on the Jeddah blog, so jedahagency.com/blog, where I'll put the information on the PROPEL model so that you can be able to go and read. So I hope you've been able to at least get something, and yeah, that this will be able to impact your business in a positive way. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can go to the website jedahagency.com/contact us, or if you're watching this on YouTube, you can leave your questions in the comment section. And if there's any topic that you would want discussed, let me know again in the comment section or through the contact us page on the jedahagency.com website. I've been Ian Courier from Jeddah Agency, and you're listening/watching the #1 digital marketing podcast in Kenya. Until next time, bye-bye.